Soccer has arrived in Charlotte. We are ready to fight.
They're classy too, man. I can wear this on a date.
People who are most successful are the ones who don't just give up.
Hey, how good are these to-go boxes?
Our to-go boxes, they're not good. They're f***ing amazing. How did we get started here at Albemarle Paper? Well, late 2008, my cousin John and I started this paper company, and we got all sorts of different products.
Hey, Nick, come on, man. Let's get to work.
You got cleaning products, too? You got a party this weekend? We got your back. Anything you need here at APS. Plates, napkins, silverware, table covers. We got everything covered, right, boys? What other items do we carry? Paper towels? I got it. Toilet paper? I got it. Gloves? We got you. Pizza boxes? You're probably wondering, where are we? Where's Albemarle Paper? Don't you worry about that. We got you. I'll bring the products to your front door. See you guys.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the MLS Corner, the best corner in all of MLS. We have a very, very jam-packed show tonight. A lot of things going on surrounding Charlotte, surrounding MLS. You know, we'll talk a little bit tonight about Charlotte FC's loss against Montreal. We got to touch on the GOAT. We're going to touch on Mexico. We've got a jam-packed show today. And with a jam-packed show with MLS All-Stars this week, I definitely had to bring an all-star cast tonight. I have my man Lee from CLTFC Fan TV. How are you today, my man?
I'm good, man. Did you see the breaking news that's coming out? Apparently, they have done a search warrant for the murder of Tupac at some house about 30 years later. I'm just wondering if whatever they find is still eligible after 30 years. So,
Bro, how great is Messi that he comes into the league and they start finding, who killed Tupac? Like,
I'm starting to lean that this man might not be a goat, but a god.
Nice. And we also have my man Brian from Bam Mauer Media. How are you today?
I'm doing well, man. I'm just pumped that my fantasy team did so well since it was the one thing that brought me up after how poorly Charlotte FC has been playing. I came in third week rank out of like 18,000. So I'm pretty proud about that.
That is amazing, bro. That's why. That's
still
why
two better though. There was still two.
Yeah, there was still.
And nice. And also, it is always a privilege to have. We got Messi coming into the league. You know what? I said we gotta have Vaughn come into the show. From a GOAT to a GOAT, my man Vaughn. How are you tonight?
I'm doing fantastic. I already went through the whole punishment of talking about this Montreal game on the Mint City Soccer Show, and I was like, why not go through it a second time? Because I'm a glutton for punishment. So
It's fun.
I love it. Someone says, Vaughn, do you have enough scarves? Bro, tell us, man, how many scarves do you have? Any idea?
I have no idea. I just got like 4 or 5 more that I haven't even put up. So the collection is growing.
C9.
Love it. All right. Awesome. So let's get started then. Let's first talk a little bit about this match against Montreal, right? I mean, it's been 2 months since we've come on and actually talked about a win. On the bright side, we didn't tie this weekend, right? So
At least something changed.
So let's talk a little bit about what we saw this weekend, right? We saw Taloma at right back, Gorujo Sobocinski burning that back line, a midfield trio of Arfield, Westwood, and Bronico, Swiderski up top, Vargas on the left, and Yazviek on the right. I'll start off with you, Vaughn, my bad. Sorry, I'm trying to talk too fast, bro. Your thoughts on this weekend's lineup?
I mean, the lineup from the jump, kind of felt like what was to be expected, outside of, maybe Merrim getting a start over Vargas. That was maybe in my, 11, what I would have rolled out at that time. But based off of the injuries and who was available, I thought it was kind of the best strength lineup that we were gonna see. I wasn't totally shocked by Lindsey going to the bench after being, involved in the 2 goals in the Cincy game. I think it was a clear message for that, which I hate for him because I think he really has played well for the bulk of the season.
Right.
But otherwise, I think it was about to be as expected. And that was the other thing that was really alarming with us getting no shots on goal was like the attacking front was a DP forward, a DP winger, a U22 winger, Westwood, our captain, and Arfield, like our new addition. Like there should have been more cooking out there. And we just had nothing going in our favor.
For sure. I mean, obviously one of the things that stands out is, the no shots on target, right? Lima, man. Another thing is just this team looks so lifeless, no energy, nothing. I didn't see anything from this performance that I could say at least like they can hold their heads up high and said they fought.
I mean, you nailed it, and Vaughn nailed it, right? I mean, it's just I don't even know what to say anymore, right? I mean, the only thing that changed really was that we, instead of getting a draw, we got a loss, right? And I mean, it's I don't know, man. It's something needs to change, and something needs to change quick. We got like 11 games left. Hopefully we can get a run of sorts in this Leagues Cup coming up, and kind of maybe give these guys some confidence or whatever. But the excuse was they were anxious playing in front of us. What is it on the road, right?
Hey, that's a great point, right? I mean, that's that's something that Latanza has mentioned, that maybe the players are a little bit anxious playing in front of the Charlotte FC crowd. Well, what are they doing when they're away, right? I mean, Brian, one of the things, and I keep mentioning, right, that we get preached at is patience, right, from what's being built. But I mean, 23 games into the season, I really can't tell you what we're actually building, right? Theoretically, right, the team has gotten better, right, from last season in terms of players, right? You have another year, so more chemistry should have been built. But to me, there's very little things I see in what's going on to tell me that we're headed in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that was what was most alarming about this game specifically. I was just really grateful that we didn't have a fan TV live watch along, because the last time I was on one of those was against DC United, and I feel like I said a bunch of things I regretted in that game. I really lost my objectivity when they lost 3-0, and that I would have done the exact. I mean, this game for me was just, I didn't see any direction. It seemed completely aimless to me in terms of just what they were trying to do. They got really overwhelmed, it looked like, early on. And then once those 2 goals went in, I mean, I guess they gained a little bit of the ball, but like just nothing, just absolutely no forward direction, no clear attacking threats. It just was really, really poor. Normally you can't use expected goals as an advanced analytic like to describe one game, but this is how poorly they played. You could use it. You could use expected goal. I mean, it was a flat line of expected goals for Charlotte and just an exponential line for Montreal. And like, that's just, when you can use advanced analytics to describe a single match, it's like, it's a serious problem. And that's kind of just what I saw in this game. And that was like, for most of it, I also was like, the subs, we haven't even gotten into the subs yet. I don't know. I mean, we talked about Jalen Lindsey getting a message, but I feel like at that 30th minute mark, when Carujo gets hurt or whatever ended up happening there, Jalen not coming in at that point, like putting in Privet down to give that to be his debut. It's sort of like when Ajuman got set up for his debut, and then that was like their terrible, like just really terrible performances, like doing the same thing to him. Like, here, let's put you in a really bad spot where you're also probably not going to really be able to contribute much to help the team get back into it. Let's see how you do. Like, what are you even providing him at that spot? Like, that's totally the Jalen Lindsey spot at that situation. If you're down 2-0, you got to put in the attacking threat. Like, there's no point in really battening down the hatches in the back line or trying to find a more defensive option. You have to put in your attacking option there. So there was just a lot I felt went wrong in this game.
Yeah, man. And I think what triggers me the most is, like, we're not playing a top talented LAFC or Cincinnati or a team that, like, that you're like, okay, like, I can expect to go here and it's going to be a tough game and maybe they'll walk us out of the park, right? I mean, it's Montreal coming off of 3 losses over 400 minutes without scoring, and they made it.
Here comes Charlotte.
Right? Yeah, it's definitely,
Everybody's looking for us.
everybody's like,
Give it a
oh, I'm
bad
going on a
streak.
bad streak. Let me play Charlotte.
Yeah.
But I think that's the sports psychology thing of it, right? Like I think our own players are playing with that fear of and like lack of confidence and be like, can we put together a full 90? I don't know. And this Jekyll and Hyde performance, like we were solid in the first half against Cincinnati, and then we got shredded in the second half. And like everybody felt it coming. Well, here you go down 2 goals, and the sports psychology is the game's over. Like, what are we gonna do to get back in this game? Like everybody could feel the season slipping away, and I think the players have got to be in that same headspace. They shouldn't be. They should be able to persevere that. But I think we saw that there was no punch there. I mean, they were missing simple stuff. Go back and look at the 36th minute. There was an opportunity where Byrne finally had a chance to run into space and transition and had Juzwiak in acres of space, and the pass just doesn't happen. Like we're missing stuff that is like basics, and like that's what Westwood was saying in the post-game pressers. Like this is high school football. Like we're just not doing the easy stuff and putting together a full 90. And that's what's I think also additionally frustrating about this is we all can see that talent. Like there are glimpses of it. We can see the ideas at times are there, and it's just not consistent when it should be by this point.
Yeah.
Latanzio overcomplicating things though, instead of just playing the basics. Let's get the basics right before we try to do anything else.
I think from what I see looking in, right? I mean, players look confused, right? You mentioned it too, like there's a lack of leadership in the squad, right? Where are all these, what happened to, we're bringing in players, right, with these leadership capabilities, with mentality. There's champions in every line. Why aren't we seeing that championship mentality? When we go up 2-0, right, we're all like, okay, well, please don't blow this lead, right? And when we're down 2-0, we know that the game is over, right? I mean, I see that as a big issue, right? And a lot of that I have to go back to the coaching, right? Especially in these last couple of games, I think Latanzio has gotten it wrong, right? Vaughn, looking forward, 11 games left into the season, my man. Do you see this team still competing for a playoff spot?
I mean, I think we could compete for the 9th spot, right? Like we're behind DC, who I think we got 1 game in hand and we play them once. So that is something that we can catch them. Montreal, we dropped 3 points behind them now, but that's really making up just 1 game. Now, granted, we now don't have the head-to-head against them, so that's not good. And the other teams we're even with. Like, is there a path to the playoffs, to the play-in game? Yes. But I think the damage is done. You know, like, we all can look at this squad and see that it has not been a fun ride for a big chunk of the season, that we're coming up short, that this last stretch of 7-8 games has really just destroyed the trajectory of the season. So we have to, like, for the end of the season, what are we working towards? Hopefully it's progress. Hopefully it's getting Arfield and Diahara more integrated into the team. Hopefully it's getting healthy and being able to put out a best 11. Hopefully it is finally seeing these principles of play bear fruit, because I don't think it's an overly complicated system in terms of we've seen it be successful at the global stage. Like Man City, Arsenal, like they do the same 3-2-2-3 a possession style. You can execute it, but has Latanzio done an effective job coaching the team to implement that style? And I think we're answering that very quickly that no, it's not working. And are the factors at play of injuries and the scandal and losing a player right before the preseason, losing a week of preseason, like those are factors, but we're not seeing individual growth and development. And now we're starting to see these iffy calls of, why is this guy getting this start over this guy? Why is this guy getting subbed off at halftime? Like Swiderski should have been on for 90 minutes in that game. That was absolutely absurd that with Capetti not available, that you're taking off your other DP and leading goal scorer when you're down 2-0. It makes no sense. So end of season, that's what we've got to fight for. Is could we make the postseason? Yeah, but I think the damage and the scars on the fan base are already set.
100%. I mean, you touched on something I wanted to touch on as well, right? It's like, obviously Swiderski going off. I 100% agree with you. Why is he coming off? And another thing too, it feels like players that are in form like are getting less minutes or something's happening because Merrim came in hot into this team, and it feels like he's gotten less playing time, and you see less of that spark that he came in with, right? Like, not to compare him to Miguel, but it feels Miguel-esque where, creative players or players in that final third aren't as creative or as excited as they once were coming into this team. Like, it reminds me, it's very similar to when Vargas came in, right? Kind of a similar situation. Merrim's coming in, he's doing great, and then all of a sudden he's getting less minutes, right? Brian, do you see a disconnect starting to happen between the players and maybe the coaching?
Yeah, I mean, you can just see in terms of I feel like their body posture, especially in this game. I think, and it's also just when we look at some of the pivotal games they've had. Like they've had 2 games against Montreal, 1 against New York Red Bulls, 1 against NYCFC. These are all games where we should have expected them to really show up like it was a playoff game, and I really don't feel like in those games specifically that it did. And those were all really pivotal games. Those are all teams right in the same grouping in the table. So those are the games that I feel like towards the end of last year, you really saw the team fighting each other, fighting the opposition. I'm thinking that when they played NYCFC and it was 1-0, NYCFC, they were down a man and they fought their way to the end. And even pretty much almost threw hands with NYCFC, because of how important that moment was. And I don't feel like we've seen that in the same way in those matchups specifically, because it's I expected them to really show up in this game because this was a pivotal game just in terms of where Montreal and Charlotte were at in the table. And it's happened now multiple times over the last month where there's hey, you're playing New York Red Bulls, they're in 11th, Charlotte are in 10th. This is this kind of situation. These are key situations for them to really show up in, and just for it to happen like this over and over again, and to not get a goal against both Montreal games. I feel like that's also an alarm bell that's really ringing. So there's just so many situations. When you talk about Merrim, I think this was a game for Merrim. Vaughn, you mentioned it earlier as well. It's just if you're talking about the issue of this team being a lack of veteran leadership, and then in a pivotal game where it's hey, we're on a huge skid, and you have a guy was in form coming right out of the gate hot, to not kind of play him. I mean, obviously Vargas has also been playing hot and cold, but he's also had some good spurts. Against Cincy, he played pretty well, but I feel in these really key matchups against other teams in the similar spot on the table, that's where you would want a Merrim type player who's a veteran, knows how to show up in these situations and has been there before. It's the perfect spot for a player like him.
Well, and our attacking players don't take risks and take chances often enough. I'm going to quiz you guys a little bit, and this is something I had on the Mip City Soccer Show too, but I think it's going to be really, really shocking. And do you know how many shots Mackenzie Gaines has in his entire time with the club?
Even last year?
2 years combined. How many shots
6.
on goal? 6.
10.
Yeah, I'll say 12. I'm going to go a little bit higher.
Yeah, you guys were splitting it. It's 11. 11 shots on goal in 1,700 minutes.
Wow.
Now, how many shots do you think Kamil Jóźwiak has in his time with the club?
20.
32.
You guys going to say probably not that, honestly, that many more. Maybe 26?
7.
Oh!
Wow.
In 2,000 minutes, Kamil Jóźwiak has 7 shots on goal. In 2,000 minutes.
And that's including both seasons.
Yes. And so Kamil Jóźwiak, he's at 2 goals and 7 assists. You've got Mackenzie Gaines and Kerwin Vargas are tied with 2 goals and 5 assists.
Yep.
So Merrim, being on the bench, he's got 3 goals, 4 assists, and 6 shots on goal in 800 minutes. Yeah. It's a no-brainer right now. You have to be starting Merrim. And especially when you make the halftime sub and bring Gaines on for Vargas, it's a net neutral move. It didn't do anything to change the attack. And so that's where the questions are why is this still the decision that's happening at this stage in the season? And those guys aren't taking chances. They're only at that many shots, all of them, because they're not firing quick at times. They've got to get into those dangerous positions. And I think that they will be supported and get more of those opportunities. The spacing will be better. Everything will be better once we improve our midfield. Like, they need midfield service. The midfield needs to be accounted for to create space for the wingers to operate, to get the ball into the forwards. Like, all of it, it's all born in midfield, but the wingers are also needing to take more of those chances.
Right. Vaughn, I'll pose this question to you because that's a very interesting stat that you just threw at us. One of the things that I personally see as an issue, right, is not enough production from our players that are supposed to make the difference, right? Between our 3DPs, I think we have 13 MLS goals this season. You've touched on Kerwin Vargas, right? What is it, 2 goals you said and 2 assists he has now this season?
2 goals, 4 assists this year.
2 goals, 4 assists this year, right?
2 of them were last week.
Yeah. Right, that's true. And then our other U22 player is at Crown Legacy, right? Like, I mean, I think from a building standpoint of the squad, the areas that we needed to get right, we haven't done a great job. We haven't had a DP that, you know, quote unquote, has popped off, right? And I mean, we're questioning, right, whether Kalina should start over George Marks. And just from a purely roster build perspective, right, if you're paying a guy $500K and he's in an international slot, there should be no questions that a player that you brought in as a 3rd round draft pick should be starting over him, right? You know, at right back, people are questioning whether to start Burn. Now he got moved to left back. So, I mean, some of these important positions, right, that we've paid for, I feel like have not done enough. A lot of our role players, in my opinion, have done enough. But so I pose this question to you then. Do you think it's more of how these players are being coached? Is it that these players that we brought in haven't contributed enough? Where do you see, is there a happy medium?
Personally, I think that there's been a lot of changes happening, right? Like, we've talked at length about the adversity this team has faced. We can talk about the scandal and be like, Nuno and Andre were a part of the plans. Like, they were going to be, they're a 5th of the team's salary budget. Right. Like, they were going to be a big part of this squad this season. You have a lot of player profiles that the club is playing guys. We keep saying out of position, but I think it's Lattanzio trying to get players with certain skill sets at different points on the pitch. And that's been greatly impacted. You know, Corujo was out the whole start of the season. They were working towards this moment where Corujo would finally be healthy. And I think all of us, every single person in the fan base pretty much, was saying our 2 best center backs are Corujo and Malanda. We have gotten a whopping, like, what, maybe 180 minutes of the 2 of them healthy together, right? Like, the roster is constantly in flux. The pieces have been mismatched all along. Like, okay, Juzviak goes down, Kopetti goes down. You've had the Corujo injury. You've had Diop that we spent all this money on. He's not available. Mora's been out for a big stretch of time. You've got 3 different right backs that are mostly playing as left backs. You've got like all this crazy stuff that's happening. And I think, you know, getting Arfield in and getting Diahara in is a signal that, okay, we're trying to elevate our skill at a certain area of the pitch, right? Like, we have not been able to control midfield. We want to be a possession team. You have to be able to create chances from midfield. That was my other conversation. That is Derek Jones and Brant Bronico have been co-starting a bunch of games in the midfield. Combined, like, through their career, their stats bear out to be like 4 goals, 4 assists combined. Like that is the ceiling for those 2 guys statistically if they're starting every single game. So you've got to have then another midfielder that is just tearing it up, or those guys need to be absolute, like, lockdown defenders, and they're not. So right now, I think the team really wants to have dual 8s. They've got to have strong dual 8s that can be involved in the attack, whether that's Arfield, Diahara, moving Swiderski back there at times, having, you know, moments where you can put Ben Bender on and you have bench options. Like, the team is struggling with depth, and I think that's some of it is injuries and the adversity, and some of it is self-inflicted.
It is. I think, yeah, I agree with you there. I would say though, a lot of the self-inflicted, like we just like some of this stuff, even with everything that you've said, right? Like some of this stuff is so like high school mistakes that we've made all season, right? That I mean, if we had 6 more points, we would be way better off. We are benefiting right now that the teams around us are pretty bad too, as well. So I mean, that's why, in terms of, I don't see us making playoffs, but at the same time, like I'm like, dude, everybody around us is bad. So we gain that benefit that this is MLS, right? I mean, like, I tweeted it out. It's like peak MLS that Inter Miami is raising the standard, right, in acquisitions, while at the same time being the worst team in the league, right? Even them with like nobody's talking about it, right? And it'll be very difficult for them to kind of make that push, but you would still consider them at least with a possibility of making the playoffs, just like us. So definitely a lot of positives, definitely a lot of negatives that we see.
I don't think there is a lot of positives.
Yeah, I don't know why I said a lot of positives.
Well,
I mean,
I think
our first team back that we play against, right, is Miami. I mean,
Right.
come on, man. If they're getting that squad together and they're going to have the Leagues Cup to kind of get them, some of their newer players kind of accustomed to the MLS, right? I mean, I don't see us winning that. I barely see us getting 3 to 6 points the rest of the season.
Wow.
Whoa, that's pretty low.
That is very, very low.
Vaughn threw the stats out, right? I mean, where is it coming from? Where are we going to get goals from? Where are we going to?
It's kind of right? And out of the last 8 games, we've gotten 5 points.
Yeah, which is already like better than that. So they have to be worse than what they're doing, which is already pretty bad.
Yeah, but we got some solid teams that we have to play against soon,
true.
right? I mean, I think Chicago's a wash, right? I don't know. I think we've got who else we got?
We got to play
Toronto.
Miami twice.
Yeah, Miami twice. I don't see us getting any points from Miami. I don't know, man. I think the club, obviously stuff happened, right? There's adversity on the pitch, off the pitch, all this other stuff, right? Stuff happened, but it's like they've used this excuse and all of this for so long. It's like, why doesn't Latanzio just simplify it for a couple of games?
Well, I think to be fair, they haven't used it as an excuse, right? Like,
well, maybe we've oversaid it.
We've said it, right? I don't think anyone in the club, even I think that was a good move by Latanzio to kind of move everybody from, like yes, it's there, but like we want to like play the season, right? So I think that's more of like the fan base mentioning it versus players and everybody coming out and saying, well, we had what happened with Walks and then what's going on with Andre and Nuno and like, so I'll give them that.
That's fair. I'll take that back, but still, I think sometimes you just got to say, all right, what we're doing is not working, right? And let's just keep it simple, right? Just simplify the game a little bit, right?
Well, the thing is, had we won against Montreal, like the whole narrative would be different. Like that's why it's so tragic. I don't
know if it would though. I mean, it would have been good for
if we were unbeaten in 6 and sitting in a playoff spot, or 1 point out of a playoff spot, and we owned the tiebreaker over Montreal, and we just got another road win. No, if we'd have been the team that walked out of there with a 2-0 win, we would all be like, we're moving all the way up to 5th. Like
it depends on how we would have won, though. If we would play like that and scrapped a 1-0, I'd be like, okay, like we got lucky, move on, right? But still, like a lot of concerns, right? So I also think a lot depends on how we're playing, right? That's why that draw against Cincinnati felt like a loss, right? We were 2-0 up, right, against one of the best teams. Like, if it was any other circumstance, right, we would have been like 2-2 at home against, the number 1 team in the East. I'll take it, right? But given the circumstances that we're in, I also think that plays a big factor.
But I think that's the point, is like the margins are so slim in MLS.
Yeah.
Like we talked about how we've dropped, what is it, like 17 points, something absurd. Yeah. Like we lead the league and drop points from a leading position. Like the opportunities are there. Like it's right there. Like that's with us playing poorly. Like, like if we just tighten things up a little bit, if our defense wasn't as leaky as it has been, if we had a little bit of health and a little bit of luck and a couple
I feel
calls
like we
go
were
our way,
saying this
it'd be
last
very
season
different.
too, though, right?
No,
were
we
saying it,
have,
right? I
but
mean,
like
we've been saying it since our existence. If we had a little bit of luck, if this result had gone this way, or if that call hadn't gone that way,
and
it's
you
like
make your own luck. You make your own
do.
luck.
I mean, that's it, right? But that's I guess that's my point, right? I mean, at what point is it that, hey, you know, whatever the idea, the big grand idea of getting us to the playoffs and that sort of shit is, it's just not working.
This is the point. This is the point.
Yeah.
But I do think this is where like De Gea could like actually, I mean, is it a pretty impactful signing in terms of just so like we had talked about a little bit earlier. Vaughn mentioned like Swiderski playing at the 8 and Ben. I think one of the issues with the roster build and the midfield specifically is like if Latanzio gets put in that situation where he puts Swiderski or Bender in the midfield, it really affects how they can build up possession because Bender and Swiderski just really aren't. They take too many risks in the terms of building up possession, which then leads to a lot of those turnovers, which leads to that extra pressure against the back line. And so Latanzio gets kind of put in the spot where it's like, okay, can I go for more attacking options like a Swiderski or Bender in the midfield and then add more to the attack? But then what ends up happening is I lose that possession battle and then I end up getting my back line just pressured too many times. And then that's where the mistakes happen. And then they give up all those goals. And so like, it's kind of like there's an element of it being a roster issue. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that De Gea is going to come in and fix all those problems, but like that's the type of player that he is, that he fits into that type of role that right now they've been having to put other players in that maybe don't fit it quite as well, or you're sacrificing possession for attack, or you're sacrificing build-up play for more attacking threat. And, so these kind of things, whereas De Gea really should fit both of those roles way better than a Swiderski or a Bender. And so, I mean, I'm not saying that one player should fix a lot of, because there's several issues with this team right now. But I mean, having the right player in midfield can make, I mean, if there's one position that can make a jump in terms of impact to help the whole team, it's a midfielder. So that's like the one silver lining or one positive I have in terms of what has happened so far.
It is, but then it also goes into like what's being factored in these decisions, right? Because I mean, we're bringing a lot of experience into that midfield. Yep. So does that mean that Swiderski goes into that role of a 9, right? And if he goes into the role of being the 9, then we have Enzo and we have Swiderski. And to me, like playing Swiderski on the wings is ineffective, right? So what are we going to start doing? We're playing 2 DPs to play that 9 role, and we're only going to have 1 on the field.
We're going to see players moved out eventually.
Yeah.
Huh?
Right.
We're gonna see player movement. There's gonna be DPs that are gonna find themselves not on the team.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I wouldn't mind us losing games if we were more attacking and giving me more moments, right? I mean, against Montreal, there was not one where I was like, oh my God, right? Like just got pumped up for it. It was just lackluster, boring, and hard to watch.
You weren't hyped for Sobochinski to hit a volley at the PK spot?
I mean, I was, but then I was like, it was the wrong player, right?
Yeah. And
wrong
the wrong
player,
player.
Well, he cleared it well. Yeah. But no, it's just I would much rather just us be more attacking and more exciting to watch. We're leaky at the back regardless, right? So you know what? Outscore us, right? If we're gonna say we're gonna concede some goals, outscore us. Let's have some 4-3s, 3-2 games, right? For once versus see what happens.
For sure. Awesome. Moving on a little bit, although we're staying in the same topic, right? The MLS commissioner, Don Garber, came out and mentioned, obviously we had the Messi mania start in MLS, and he was asked about, Messi playing on turf, and his comments were whether or not he plays on turf is really going to be up to the players and up to him, aka Messi. And he said his expectations are that teams with turf will look to install temporary grass on top of the turf, right? So this puts me and a lot of people, I think, and MLS in general, in a very interesting situation, more in terms of your Atlantas and your Charlotte FCs, right? Because if we get into a scenario where we need to win that game, right? What is Charlotte going to do? Are they going to put a grass field so Messi can play against them and hinder their chances at, qualifying for a playoffs game? Or, right, all these people that are coming in specifically to see Messi. And we saw that in our poll today that we did. Almost 1,000 people voted, and 70% of the people said, yes, change the turf to grass because we want to see the GOAT.
So I voted no.
I'll throw this question out to you guys, and I want to hear from everybody as well. Should Charlotte FC change the bank to natural grass just for Messi?
If the MLS wants grass to be out there, then they should make it a rule that grass has to be out there. If they've given us the option to put turf in, then I don't see if a player comes to this league should have the option, regardless if it's Messi, Ronaldo, whoever. If you're healthy to play, you should play, right? It is what it is. You come to Charlotte, we got turf. You know that. You play on turf. The fact that we're going to roll over for a player, I put that back on the MLS. I don't put that on the player himself, but I put it on the MLS. You either say, all right, everybody, you need grass to play if you want to be in this league, or if you're going to give us the option with turf, then there shouldn't be any questions. If he's fit to play, he should play, regardless if it's turf or grass.
Yeah, I do agree. I think you put this blame on Garbo, right? And it's kind of like you can't really say, like, it really shows some sort of favoritism towards Inter Miami, right? If you're saying, right, my expectations are for you to, like, put grass, right, when, you know, every club is fiending to, you know, make a playoff, especially looking at Charlotte FC situation, right? You're pretty much saying, hey, my expectations are this. From what we know per that Athletic article, and from what I know as well, is that the intention is to stay, for the field to stay at turf, right? No official statement has come out from Charlotte yet. I mean, things could change. You never know. Maybe they make some sort of permanent rule, right? Vaughn, what's your take on all of this?
I mean, I think to attract the biggest players and to attract the biggest teams, the demands are becoming stronger and stronger for grass. And it's not only at the Major League Soccer level, it's also at the NFL level. Like really this has been an ongoing conversation among NFL players, and including Panthers players. Like, this is also a local issue.
Loud last year.
Right. So like the pressure is going to be on to make the change. And Messi is going to his impact on the league is going to impact things like rules and player safety and those sorts of things. Like, this is a topic because of Messi. Like, it's being put into hyperdrive of, like, we've got to solve this problem, and there's enough people that are recognize it as a problem. If Messi and Miami and Tata Martino decides to not play Messi because of turf, especially if Miami's at that point in the season eliminated from playoff contention, which is very, very possible.
Correct.
You know, that if that is happening across the country, that he's not playing, like, that's going to be a problem for Miami. It's going to be a problem for the league, for the sponsors, for everything. So change will come. We're going to see a decision made about this grass situation, and I wouldn't be shocked if Messi's the reason that it actually does change. My personal opinion, do you change it for one game at this point in the season? No, you shouldn't do that. Now, if the league went and paid for it and all that stuff, like, he signed a contract with the league knowing that some of these stadiums have turf, right? Like, that's a known fact. So he also is agreeing to a contract, and that's to play a full season regardless of those circumstances.
I agree with you, but when the commissioner says it's up to the player, it's up to the coach, right, whether they decide to play or not, that's a very telling type of words, right, in my opinion, right? Brian, I mean, I can see it from both sides. If I'm just a neutral and I want to come see Messi and you don't change that turf to grass and he doesn't play, I'm going to be really pissed off when you're charging people $100 to sit in nosebleeds to watch Messi. And I also get it from the fans' perspective, too. It's very disrespectful as a Charlotte FC fan to see, quote unquote, give an advantage to an opposing team just because we have to accommodate for one player, even though he is the GOAT.
Yeah, I think it really is going to come down to where both teams are positioned in the table when it comes to that point. I think I honestly really
honestly don't think it. I mean, like, how, like, well, I mean, how much of a time, how much in advance do you need Like, what is the logistical side of this? Like, I don't feel like you could say, okay, all right, we're now out. Now let's switch it. You know, if
we have a couple weeks, I mean, you could probably switch it in a couple. I'd imagine they can probably do it. I mean, they've done it before in a matter of days for the Chelsea game. I mean, so
well, they've done it in a matter of days, but they've known 6.
Yeah, that's true.
Months ahead versus you know, like right now, everything's uncertain. We don't know if we're going to make playoffs. We don't know how close we will. We don't know if we'll be eliminated by then. So
that's
there's so many different factors.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that I do totally get Garber's perspective as well. Another piece that was in that article was like, so not only does the Messi move provide obviously a lot more focus for a lot of players and the league as a whole, what it does for Apple, and this is the reason like Apple is so involved in his contract, is because Apple is about to make a huge killing off of broadcasting Apple like iPhones to South America and Central America. So like there's a huge advantage for them in this whole deal as well in terms of broadcasting this game internationally. And so I think that's also where Garber's coming from, is like, okay, if we're going to have these games on turf and these people are going to be tuning in for their first ever MLS games in Argentina or in Japan and all over the place to tune in and see Messi for the first time. And I think that's going to be where I think Garber's also coming from in terms of like, this is an opportunity for MLS to really broadcast themselves as a league internationally. And if it's on football lines, right? I'm obviously I don't think it will be, but like that's the situation that comes up. I think I can.
Well, the first game available Messi's playing is us in Miami, right?
Correct.
The real painful thing is we're going to end up spending more money buying out Andre Shinyashiki's contract than it would cost to put in this turf.
Crazy. Right. So, I mean, yeah, it definitely brings, right? I mean, with all the hype, with the Messi mania, I think Vaughn touched on it too. It's really going to force the league to make some changes that maybe they wouldn't have thought of before Messi coming in, right? Also think, like, how is Miami, like, pulling off getting Jordi Alba, Sergio Busquets, Messi, Luis Suarez as well. Someone said, I read somewhere that Ramos was offered, but like they're looking for younger players in those positions. Like, I'm like, how are they able to facilitate all these players and stay within salary cap guidelines, right? So it's definitely going to force the league to make some changes. And to me, I like that. I like that. If it comes out to where it's all right, now everybody has to play on grass, right? That's a net positive in my opinion, right? If the league forces a change like that. But if you leave it like this, right, where it's up to the club, but we don't know where this team is at, right? Oh, what if they can make playoffs or they don't make, but we want to see Messi, but some people want their team to qualify. Like, it just becomes like more of a mess, right? So there is no certainty, and this is the point where you can start making changes for different certainties.
Goats need grass.
Goats do need grass.
Oh, we definitely can't win on turf, so maybe we can't win on grass.
Nice. Let's touch a little bit about the Leagues Cup, right? Charlotte FC traveled to Dallas. It's going to be a Friday game. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is it a Friday game?
Yes, it's Friday.
Okay, because there's like 2 different outlets, and ESPN too, that I read that it said Saturday, and it confused me. And then I went and I was like, okay, but it is Friday because, anyways, right? How often? Bad way of phrasing my question. All right, so going into Charlotte or coming out of 8 winless games, how important is it, or do you guys see a benefit in kind of getting away from the league right now and focusing on another tournament, or do you see it as okay, well, like it would have been better for this team to continue and figure out a way to kind of stay within playoffs, right? You guys see it as a benefit to switch gears and go into another tournament, or do you see it as a negative? Vaughn, you're shaking your head yes?
Oh, man, we need to get healthy, and we need to get our heads right. Like there is so much that is off right now. So I don't think that this could have come at a better time. Like, hit the reset button, figure shit out. Sorry for lack of a better term. They've got to get some things right and treat Leagues Cup like it's a preseason. Number 2, integrate Arfield, get Diahara in here, really establish what has got to change, be crystal clear in direction. If now's the time to change coaches, if you're going to pull the Band-Aid, do it. Like the decisions right now are critical to the end of the season.
Yeah, very, very true. Something that Vaughn just mentioned, right? Now could be the time to change the coaches, right? Let's talk a little bit about that, right? I mean, say, right, that we get 2 losses, right? We lose against FC Dallas. We come back home and we lose against Necaxa. Is that your final trigger to let Lattanzio go, or do you still keep him? Because you know what? In reality, the League's Cup's really not affecting MLS and the season there. So I'll start off with you, Lee.
I think Lattanzio's here till the end of the season. I mean, it's almost August already, right? I mean, that's 2 months. There's no point, I don't think, in trying to fire him and salvage the season. I don't think we're going to make the playoffs regardless. I don't think we'll get the new manager bounce. I just think it's a good time for the League's Cup, like Vaughn was saying, to kind of give us a distraction from the league itself. Hopefully we can pull something together, and just change the mentality of the guys, right? I mean, but seriously, I don't see us going too far. Then we're going to have this break in between. Back and have to go play Miami.
Brian?
Yeah, I mean, I don't see a huge benefit to letting go of Lattanzio. I mean, it's sort of like doing the same thing as they did last season. And we've already gone down this road once. And it's not like they're going to have an ideal fit replacement. I mean, they're going to either bring one of their assistant coaches up and fill as an interim for the rest of the season. I mean, and my preference would be probably Jose Tavares, but I mean, he's got such a good thing going at Crown Legacy FC. You might as well let him finish that road there for this season and let him continue to grow with those boys for now. So there's really no advantage to bringing him up right now. So there's just not a real strong path forward to letting Lattanzio go. And it also, I mean, and I think there's another aspect is setting this precedent of firing coach after coach during the season. I mean, that's going to affect hiring. I mean, obviously Messi coming to the league changes hiring and both players, coaches. There's going to be a whole new push to come to this league. But if you're the team that's fired a coach during the season, both of your years, I don't think that sets a great, I mean, not saying that you keep them, it sets a much of a greater precedent if you get them through the whole season. But I mean, I just think firing the coach without even seeing that whole season play out it's definitely going to make some coaches think twice about whether or not they actually want to come here. I would definitely, if I was a coach, I think I would think twice about it for sure. And really have to hear a strong argument from everyone within the organization of why it would be different this time. Because now you have to prove it why it didn't happen twice. So.
Interesting. I'll leave my thoughts for last. Vaughn?
I mean, in terms of, I've been a supporter of Lattanzio and saying I want stability. I believe that the system can bear fruit because we've seen it on the global stage. But the caveat to that is unless he's losing the locker room. And I think that there are clear signals now that if he hasn't started, he either has already lost the locker room or it's starting to, fester and starting to show it on the outside. It feels like there are problems that are ongoing and that is a big factor in our performance. He's definitely not elevating the players that are at his disposal right now. So the question of do you let him go right now or not, I think it comes down in large part to, is he going to cause more damage sticking around? I think that was ultimately the decision on why Mar was let go when he was. Correct. Was he's going to cause more damage if we let this keep going on.
Right.
So we have to determine, or we don't have to determine, Tepper and Zoran, but probably Tepper needs to decide, is now the moment in time? Has the decision already been made? Is this a when, not if situation? And it feels like that's the case.
A when.
And so even from an outside recruitment thing, people in soccer understand you have to win. they can look at the standing and be like, yeah, this guy was in a 8-game losing streak, and we can see the principles of play weren't working. And all right, I can come in, and that's going to be my legacy to be the first guy to do it here. Like the sales pitch can still happen. I think any coach that's worth their weight would be able to see through that stuff if it was the right fit for them. So as much, and I've had that stance, like I've wanted stability, and I want us to stick with it and ride the wave and come out the other side. I think that's what bears the most fruit within MLS. Like you can look at Jim Curtin and how long he's been there, Peter Vermes for how long he's been there, Schmetzer, Adrian Heath. Like the teams that can stick with a guy and allow it to mature tend to end up having sustained success in this league. The question is Lattanzio that guy for us? And it's starting to, I think, answer itself.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of points that everybody touched on, and specifically you, Vaughn. One is, dang, I totally forgot my train of thought. All right, I'll start
reading the comments.
I was. It's very difficult sometimes to go and like add different things, but I think one is, now I don't think like before it was a group decision between Tepper, Zoran, and everybody in the front office to let Margot. Now I think it becomes more of a decision on Zoran or more of a decision on Tepper and how much he's trusting Zoran as well. Because if you let this coach go right now, right, that's 2 failed coaches in 2 years under the direction of this sporting director, right? That's a fact. That is a reality, right? So you start questioning, right? Are you the right guy that is going to take us out of where we're at right now? So I think that becomes an interesting conversation, right? So, if I'm looking at it from a Zoran's perspective too, right? Like, I want this coach to succeed, right? Because if he gets fired, right, it looks bad on me again, right? Because now this, like I mentioned, it's 2 coaches that were under, right, that did not do what they were meant to do here, right? So I think it now becomes more of a question, right? Like, I think the influence that Zoran has starts to dwindle a little bit because he's losing the trust, right? So, and you never know, it might be a decision where Tepper says, because I feel like Tepper could be the type of guy to be like, okay, Zoran's out, Lattanzio's out, we're going to start all over, right, and move in a different direction for season 3, right? So that's one thing. The second thing, and I kind of disagree with you, Brian, and some of the people in the comments section, is about like it becoming more difficult to bring in a coach here, seeing what's going on. I think the league is attractive enough, and I think where we play with the fan base and how much parity there is in MLS, that this project will seduce some managers, right? Hopefully it seduces the right type of manager to come in here, right? I mean, MLS continues to grow despite Ronaldo saying that the Saudi league is better, right? And the fan base that we have, I've touched on it. There's just so many net positives that just coming into this league, and say you can turn the ship around, like Vaughn said, of a Charlotte, right, where, things haven't been great for 2 years, and you become that guy that really raises your profile of a coach, or it stabilizes who you already are, depending on the type of coach that we can bring in.
But
right?
here's the reason why. So here's the reason why I also think it could be an issue, and I think you and Vaughn both touched on it. This is a decision now at this point because of how many poor decisions and how many issues that have come up. It's coming down to Tepper, who's not a soccer guy, making the call. Like in this point, we're like, is Lattanzio the right guy? Is it damage control time? And for me, I mean, we see it at Chelsea right now, right? You see it in the league where like people that aren't as familiar with owning a soccer club, it plays a role, even at the highest level. So
yeah,
like
Chelsea had Glick too. So
yeah, but I'm just saying like when it comes down to
I'm with Brian on this.
When an owner who has really no experience with what he's doing is now being put in a situation to try to fix a bad situation, which he made a lot of the hard. He's the reason Mark came. That was the whole thing. Like, man, I had this 30 minutes.
I mean, he's the reason Zoran's here too. Like, I mean,
right? And
these guys hired him.
And so it adds up. And then for me, that's and maybe that doesn't make a difference whether Latanzio's gone now or Latanzio's gone at the end. That might not make a difference. Maybe it's just this is a problem that they're going to have to deal with regardless. But I think it is something worth bringing up in terms of just like, if Zoran has lost the trust and now it's coming down to Tepper making the call, because Zoran's supposed to be the guy who really knows this business. Yep. And now it's Tepper having to make the call.
Preach it, Brian.
That's a game changer.
I think both Zoran and Latanzio need it.
Yeah. And which is then, but and when, I mean, how do you, and then how you're interested in the coach? I mean, then you have to wait for the whole foundation to rebuild.
And this is a fair point too, right? I mean, a lot of the players that are in now are CL guys. So it's another roster flip, right? Mm-hmm. And so now it becomes like, okay, like we're 3 years in, right? At the beginning was like, I know something that was mentioned, hey, a 3 to 5 year project to be consistently playing well, to be in the higher part of the league, to be competing, to be a possession-based attacking style team, right? And we're starting from scratch again. Year 3 is what it feels like.
The good thing is in MLS, you can make those moves very rapidly and really change the fortunes of a team. Like Cincinnati 2 years ago was a wooden spoon team. Like they won 3 wooden spoons in a row. They had tons of turnover in coaches, in sporting directors. They had their own scandals. They had tons of problems. And now look at where they are. They're at the top of the standings, and they did it with guys with MLS experience. They still brought in international talents. They hired an unproven lifetime assistant coach to come in and have their first opportunity as a head coach, first time GM. Like they did certain things that is replicable within the league. And we've got to answer right now, what do we have to do to make that same leap? And okay, Atlanta and LAFC by year 2 are winning championships. We're not doing that in year 2, but can we do that in year 3? What do we have to do right now to, in year 3, be a championship contender? That should be the expectation for everybody in the organization.
Fair point. Great points. Yeah, I mean, I think that's so. What's the beauty of this league too in MLS, right? Like, it's so like it's such a difficult league to describe to people that don't watch it, and having Messi come in now and other people start looking at this league is very, very interesting. Like the takes that I see from people that don't follow this league are like so negative or so like, what, I don't understand what's going on in this league. But like, you're right. Just going back to your point, right? A couple of changes and things can turn around. And I think you mentioned it too. We had a side conversation, Vaughn, a little bit about this as well, that like a few pieces can change and our fortunes can change a lot too in this team, right? Touching on a little bit, because I can't believe it's already 9:00, on the game against Dallas, right? What are you expecting, Brian? Do you expect to see kind of a players that maybe you hadn't seen in the past get minutes here, or is Latanza going to go with the strongest squad? What are you expecting?
I'm hoping he goes with the strongest squad. I'm hoping he gives them reps and just gives we hope that they get a chance to build some sort of cohesion back and some confidence back. And just, I hope the message is these are two, like Vaughn said earlier, preseason in some respects. Let's get back to having some fun playing ball. How can you find that message to get out of this funk? And I think that would be my message, is like, let's get back to some basics. Let's enjoy playing. Remember that we enjoy playing together because they've enjoyed playing together before. How do you get back to that in this window of like a week and a half where they're playing against beatable teams? Necaxa is one of the worst teams in Mexico, and FC Dallas are a pretty like middle of the road team in MLS right now. So like they have a favorable group. Go out there and just try to just reconnect and build that cohesion and have fun, right? I think it's a simple message. Enjoy your play.
Time to party?
Yeah.
And the marketing team
But
is
don't
gonna
say
figure
it
that
too
out.
loud because we'll get fired up.
Yeah.
Color marketing team, right? Vaughn, what can you tell us about just the Leagues Cup in general, right? I mean, it's a new tournament from Liga MX and MLS, right? I mean, first of all, I think if ends in a draw, right, then you go to penalties and the team gets 2 points, right? So it's very interesting, like the format. And so, if you're up to date on it, can you kind of give us some of your thoughts and what you see from this?
I mean, it's having the round robin style of play happening between MLS and Liga MX is about the best matchup we've seen of getting to see how the two leagues truly compare, right? We have the CONCACAF Champions League where we get to see the teams that were at the top. You know, often you see Cruz Azul, Tigres, Chivas, León, Monterrey, right? Like those teams you see all the time, but you don't see Necaxa, you don't see Club Tijuana, you don't see some of those other clubs in Liga MX going against Charlotte FC and St. Louis. And I think it's a good gauge for where the two leagues are at in relation to one another. It's also interesting the timing of it, that MLS is pausing for an entire month. that is unprecedented for this type of tournament. And us also getting them when they're in their preseason as opposed to us in our preseason with the CONCACAF Champions League. So the format of it, starting with the round robin, then going into a knockout style tournament, I think it is going to be an exciting tournament to look forward to as it matures.
For sure. I mean, honestly, to be honest, okay, we can both benefit from this in terms of like money, viewership, right? Like, I mean, we'll touch briefly because it's already 9 o'clock, right? On Mexico coming to play in Charlotte, right? El3 will be looking to play Ghana at Bank America in October, right? I mean, from what I know, from what my sources tell me is they're negotiating it right now. I think there's a high possibility it happens, right? It's one of the things where, you know, like until it's official, nothing is official, but it's heading in the right direction. And if I was a betting man, I would say that it happened here, right? I mean, we saw that game happen, or not this particular game, but we saw Charlotte versus Ecuador a couple of years ago here, and right before our season started for Charlotte FC, and we really see how much of a soccer heart there is within Charlotte and the surrounding areas. Because Mexico brought a scene, Ecuador a big team, and it was still like 40,000 people here. So I mean, it'll be cool. Obviously, if you're a kid, that really hypes you to kind of see your team, kind of like when I saw Honduras here. So should be a good time, right? One more thing I wanted to touch on, right, before we end the stream. I wanted to answer a couple of these questions, and I thought some of these were really good. And so we'll do a little round robin. This is a good question by Tyler. If you had the chance to start the roster from scratch with similar amounts of spending, how many of your players would you re-sign? Is there anyone? Let's just stick to DPs and young DPs. How many of our DPs and young DPs would you re-sign? I'll start off. I'll switch it up. The only person I would sign would be Swiderski. Everybody else,
but then that's I just like, maybe can we get a free half a season with him just to see? Jorge.
Okay. So you said Swiderski?
Yeah, Swiderski, but you know, still I mean, I still wouldn't feel confident. It'd be like, all right, if I had to pick one, who I'd pick.
For sure. Vaughn?
Yeah, Swiderski is the only one. I mean, I still believe in Copetti. I don't think Swiderski and Copetti are proving to be a good partnership. So yeah. I think it's a loaded question because it involves the rest of the roster build. Like you want to build around your DPs. So, you know, that's maybe the part that we're missing a little bit in our build is who's the cornerstone, right? And so Copetti, I think, could be good in this league. In a very specific system and circumstance. And I think that, I mean, he scored 20 goals in Argentina. There's a level there. He needs a team he needs more service than I thought heading into the season. So Swiderski and Copetti are the ones I would say are the best, but Swiderski for sure has proven to be MLS quality.
For sure. Do y'all think Miami will finish above Charlotte by the end of the season, Brian?
Finish above Charlotte. I mean, I think that's definitely within the cards. But I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I mean, it's a pretty long stretch.
So
they're still 8 points back.
Yeah.
They
So
beat us
14
twice. That's 6 points.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Nice. Lee?
I think Miami's going to be the one that pips the last playoff spot and knocks it out from.
Dang. Okay. All right. Messages coming that Isaac Walker won Goalie Wars. That's awesome. Shout out to Isaac, MLS Next Pro. And then last one. Okay, I think that's it. And Saban coming in here and trolling us. Jorge, did you order your Inter Miami jersey yet? No, I have not. Go ahead and send me the black one, Esteban, because you keep asking me about it. So XL Messi bag, send you the address. I better see it here in the next 2 weeks.
Send 2.
All right. Yeah, send 2. Send 2 and then send some natural grass as well. All right. With that said, guys, thank you so much. It was a great show, informative as always, right? Lee, where can we find you
At CLTFC Fan TV on all the socials media, blah, blah, blah. Live stream tomorrow night at 9. Probably going to do a watch along for the Dallas game Friday. So,
Nice.
Brian, if you're up for it, man, jump on. And that's about it, man. And then on the streets and at your local.
Nice. Brian, where can we find you at, my man?
Yeah, y'all can find me on Twitter at Bam Hour Media. You can also find all my written content at topbin90.com. And our show, Dropping Points, that I do with Blake Eshelman from MLS Gone Wild. We're going to take a little bit of a hiatus during Leagues Cup because there's no fantasy, but we'll probably come back a couple weeks before the end of this restart of the season and be back week to week from there.
Nice. That was funny, Esteban. I'll give it to you. Man, Vaughn, where can we find you?
At VI Pullman, right there. That's the one.
Nice.
Everyone to the point. Everyone to the point.
I love it. I love it. You guys know who I am. Jorge Gonzalez or Top Bin 90 on all our socials. Hopefully next week when we do our show, we'll have some positive news, right, to talk about and not have the conversation concentrated on how poorly we are, right? We definitely need some change, and hopefully the league brings it. With that said, everybody have a good night. Go.